Fallen was created using RPG Maker 2003 for the RM Venture event, and was hastily constructed over a period of 7 days. And despite the small window of opportunity the developers had to make this game, the end result is extremely under par. This isn't to say the game is unplayable or nearly unbeatable. If anything, Fallen is comprised of the long list of aspects that, while aggravating, are among the least aggravating issues a game could have, which is to say the game is way too easy. The plot of Fallen can easily be summarized in a single sentence. You play as Fiona, a female elf suffering from amnesia, who goes on a quest with some of her friends to regain her memories and find other members of her own kind. Sadly, I take issue with the amnesia plot point, which in the immortal words of John Tickles is RPG cliche number 1. And my problem with this plot point isn't that it's overused, but that the plot point isn't utilized effectively. There's nothing in this game that would really change all that much if Fiona did have her memories, so having her suffer from amnesia feels like a pointless story trapping to make the game more interesting than it is. In my own immortal words, if you're going to utilize a common story idea, then making sure you utilize it effectively is pivotal, since people can and will compare it to a long list of games that utilize that same idea more effectively than you did, like Wild Arms 5. Fallen is a RPG with random encounters and an active time battle system. And while I tend to have issues with the active time battle system, I can largely ignore those issues in this game, since the enemies are so slow it doesn't feel like I'm being rushed at all. On the contrary, the enemies feel way too slow for this type of combat system, especially in the face of how many agility increases the game gives you for free. In fact, this one counter in the game will always give you a guaranteed drop of 2 agility increases per encounter. Add in the high encounter rate in this game, and you'll find yourself sitting on a large collection of these boosts rather quickly. And since the primary stat consideration in an active time battle system is speed, you'll quickly find yourself landing 2 to 3 hits for every attack the enemy gets, which renders the game incredibly unbalanced in the player's favor. This issue gets even worse once you get to Sky City, since you can buy stat boosts for chump change. So much so that I recommend saving all of your money up until you get to the basement, since you'll largely find the armor and weapons you need laying on top of boxes, pots, and barrels over the course of the game, so there's little reason to invest your money into new equipment since it'll be outdated almost entirely by the stat increases you can get. In fact, by the time I got to the final boss, almost all of my stats outside of health were maxed out, which means I was able to take down the Prince of Darkness, the Father of Lies, and so on, before he could even get more than 4 attacks off. Graphically speaking, the game appears to rely on the default tile sets, which isn't an issue in my opinion. While the default tile sets are utilized in many freely available games and leave this game with a rather generic look, it needs to be kept in mind that this game was created over the course of a week, so there wasn't a lot of time to create custom tile sets or map overlays for the game. On the plus side of things, the overall map, tile maps, and dungeons are all appropriately sized. On the other hand, the insides of some of the buildings feel a bit larger than the outside would leave you to believe, and some of the rooms within the game feel a bit sloppy. A good example of this is that the game will sometimes place multiple suits of armor in a small alcove in order to represent a closet, and I'll be blunt in saying this feels like a waste of space and makes the rest of the floor feel needlessly cluttered. Sound-wise, the game is just average all around, since it relies on the default sound effects and background music that comes with RPG Maker 2003. This really shouldn't come as a surprise though, since it was made over the course of a week, but it does mean the game lacks any sort of unique identity when it comes to its score. Fallen is an RPG in desperate need of some tender loving care when it comes to the combat balance. As it stands now, the game is far too easy to hold the player's attention for long. And while the game is rather short, clocking it under an hour and a half based on my own playthrough, it doesn't change my opinion that this game is best skipped over in favor of other games.